Hello! I'm assuming if you clicked on this video, then you read the title, so you know what we're about to do, so no need for any intro, let's get right into it. And if you did not read the title of this video, then that's kind of weird. You would click on a video without knowing a single thing about what you're about to watch. I read the huge BookTok YA critically acclaimed They Both Die at the End. And let's just say they should have called this They Both Die of Boredom by the End. Or at least I died of boredom by the end. I had such mixed feelings about this book. There are so many things that I loved and also hated about it. So They Both Die at the End is basically kind of like a dystopian world where this thing called Deathcast will call you up if you are going to die today. And you don't know when you're going to die, but if you get that Deathcast call, you're going to die at some point in the next 24 hours. And this story follows Mateo and Rufus, who both get that dreaded Deathcast call, and they don't really have a lot of people close to them in their life, and they're just teenagers, so they don't really know how to spend their last day. Okay, what I loved about this book, I love the concept and the world. It is such a cool and unique idea that we have some sort of technology in the future that is able to tell us when we're gonna die. There's also a lot of other fun technologies like Last Friend, where you can meet a friend for your last day, and a bunch of other stuff. So I thought the world building was really cool. Now, what brings me to my dramatic statement on dying of boredom? Where do I begin? I have some things I have mixed feelings on. Number one being that the author chose two teenagers that are just so average to write this book about, and part of me loves that because it's so relatable. Like, if I got that Deathcast call, how would I spend my last day? I don't know. I probably would just go eat at my favorite restaurant, hang out with my parents. So I did appreciate that the book is about real teenagers doing what is probably realistic for your last day. But is that entertaining? I don't know. I just feel like there was so much opportunity for some really unique things to happen on two characters' last day ever in their life. Like, how would a billionaire spend their last day on Earth? How would the president spend their last day on Earth? And I would probably give it 3 stars. Overall, a slightly forgettable story, but an unforgettable concept and world. Okay, I was on a YA roll this month. I also read One of Us is Lying and One of Us is Next, which is the sequel to One of Us is Lying. And I would be lying if I said I did not love these books. The first book in the series, One of Us is Lying, is about 5 students that go into detention and only 4 make it out alive. So it's YA, it's a murder mystery, very much Breakfast Club vibes. Each of the 4 characters has like their own stereotype, like the beauty, the brains, the athlete. I also rarely read anything that isn't romance / have I read anything that isn't romance in the last year? I don't think so. It's got some romance. It is YA, so like nothing spicy at all. Very like sweet, wholesome romance. And I'm a fangirl for this couple. Hashtag Nate Wynn for life. One of Us is Lying is also a show on Peacock. Did I subscribe for Peacock, binge the whole show, and then unsubscribe from Peacock? Yes. Was it worth it? Absolutely, because some people have mixed opinions on the show, but I actually really liked it. What's cool about it is it's not a movie, it's a show. I thought they did a great job of including all of the main key things that happened in the book, but then also adding more because, again, it has to extend beyond the book in order to last for many seasons. Then the second book in the series is One of Us is Next, which, okay, I love the One of Us is theme we got going on with these titles because one of us, aka me, is really impressed with the sequel. What I love about this book is that it's kind of like a companion novel, but also a straight up sequel at the same time. It follows a different set of main characters that are all, I believe, a year younger from our cast from One of Us is Lying. So it takes place in the same world, in the same town, in the same high school, and we get little cameos from the characters from One of Us is Lying. But there's a new mystery going on. There's this anonymous person sending out texts to the whole school that's basically one giant truth or dare game. If you pick truth, then that anonymous person reveals a secret about yourself to the entire school, and if you pick dare, then you have to do a crazy thing that they want you to do. One of Us is giving this series 4 stars because I loved it. I don't know if there's another book in this series, but if there is, I will definitely be reading it. And we're not just on a YA roll, we're also on a series roll because I read The Mistake and The Score, which are the second and third books in the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. The Mistake is a new adult romance, it's a hockey romance, and I found out I really love sports romances. It is also a second chance romance. This is the first ever second chance romance trope I've ever read. This book is about Logan and Grace, and Logan is of course a hockey player. He's kind of like a player player off the ice too. Oh my gosh, I just thought of that on the spot. He meets Grace by pure accident, by absolute chance, and they end up hanging out, taking a liking to each other, but then he just messes everything up. He fumbled that one, which I think is a football term, not a hockey term. Grace decides that Logan cannot just get back in her life so easily, and if he wants her back, he's gonna have to work for it. And I feel like so many romance stories, it's like the girl's POV, and it's like, does he like me? Does he not like me? I just thought it was really refreshing how they get together from the very beginning, and now he's gotta sip over her. All of the books in the series are also dual POV, and I think Elle Kennedy has written the best male POV I have ever read of any romance books. I don't know what it's actually like to exist in the mind of a college male, but the way that she writes their POV is how I would imagine a college-aged male would think and act. I would say that The Mistake, so far out of the 3 books I've read in the off-campus series, is my least favorite one in the series, but I still really freaking liked it, and it would be a mistake to not give it 4.5 stars. Then we have The Score, which is about Dean and Allie, and my name's Allie, and I love this book. I don't know if that means something, like maybe it was fate. The Score is also, of course, a hockey romance, a new adult / college romance. Trope-wise, it is friends with benefits to lovers, and also a F-boy who it turns out is actually a sweet boy. Trope, if that's a trope. And this book was a mega score for me, not just a mega score, but the score of my November, because I think it was my only 5-star read this November. The way that Dean, I hate to say this, but like the way that Dean was just like an F-boy turned sweet boy, like I said, I felt like it just fulfilled my middle school Wattpad desires while still being written incredibly well, unlike many Wattpad stories I read back in the day. Oh my gosh, I'm out here gushing about this book and I didn't even explain what it's about. The Score is about Allie and Dean, and like I said, he's like an F-boy and Allie is like more sweet, cute, wholesome, but she can't resist Dean and they have a one-night stand, and they both think that's gonna be the end of it, but Dean cannot get Allie out of his head. So far, I'm just so in love with the off-campus series and I'm very excited to read. I think there's one more book in the series that I'll probably be reading next month. Then I read November 9th by Colleen Hoover, and I did not just read November 9th in November. I read November 9th on November 9th. I actually made a whole reading vlog about this book and I shared all of my thoughts. So I'm not gonna go too in depth right now on this book, but I had mixed feelings about this book. If you don't know what it's about Fallon and Ben, and they live in LA, but Fallon is about to move across the country to New York City, but she meets Ben on her last day in LA, and they decide to spend her last day together, and they hit it off really well. And that day, you guessed it, is November 9th, and they decide to meet up every single year on November 9th and not have any communication or contact in between that. I think the concept is so good, and this book is also plot twist heavy at the end, which normally is something that makes me love a book, but I don't know how to explain it. It just felt a little bit gimmicky. It should work, like on paper, it should work so well, but in these papers, it did not work well for me. Okay, I gotta stop doing these puns. It's like a solid 3.5 stars for me. Wouldn't recommend to be at the top of your TBR list, but if you're looking for something to read, I still liked it. Then I read Hot House Flower, which is the 5th book in the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series. 5 books in, how do I even explain the plot? Basically, the series concept is that it follows 3 sisters and their relationships and their life. And as much as this whole series is a romance series, it is also a friendship series, and it also deals with a lot of tough topics like addiction, growing up in a wealthy family, and the major cons that come with that. And overall, this is the best series I have ever read in my life, second to Harry Potter, because nothing can top the Harry Potter series. In this book, we finally get to explore the POV of Daisy, who is the youngest Calloway sister, and her relationship with Reich. I was so excited to read this book because Daisy is like the daredevil, like crazy younger sister, and Reich is like the misunderstood, rough around the edges, cusses a lot, like always keeping it real dude, but still like so loving and like cares so much. Trope-wise, it's friends to lovers, and then it's also an age gap romance. This was my only critique with the book. I've never read an age gap romance before, and I think they're only 7 years apart, which isn't really that big of a deal, but she's 18 and he's 25, and I feel like when you're that young, it's a huge gap. I can't imagine being with someone 18 and I'm only 23, but I still really freaking loved it. Overall, this book individually is probably a 4.5 stars for me, but the series as a whole is, I haven't even finished it and I know it's gonna be a 5-star series for me as a whole. Then lastly, Hideaway by Penelope Douglas, which is the second book in the Devil's Night series. I don't remember what month I read Corrupt by Penelope Douglas, which is the first book in the series, but I have a lot of opinions on the series. And I think my opinions on the first book are pretty much the same for the second book. It is a dark romance, and I've never read a dark romance before. I don't know what it really means for something to be considered a dark romance, but these books are dark. And they're not just dark, they're like so twisted, like kind of messed up. And I've never had more of a love-hate relationship with a book or series ever in my life. Like the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, I hate this, but I cannot stop reading it. Does that make sense? Probably not. The second book is definitely less dark than the first, which was a relief. So yeah, I would say if you're into dark twisted things, you'll definitely like this series. If you've never read any dark twisted romance, it's worth a check out. You may love it or you may hate it. I don't know. And that is all the books I've read in November. I just went book shopping and I got so many books and I went to so many bookstores, so that is gonna be my video for next week. Okay, I will see you guys next week with my book shopping video. Bye! Missing someone.